Hey folks, so I thought I'd make a follow-up video to now that I've had the API box for a couple of weeks. This mix that's happening right now is from live tracks from a gig. An artist named Matt Friedman, who records here at Hopetown, did a gig, and I played on it too. I played keys, but it was multi-tracked to Logic through a Midas M32 console, and I imported the WAV files to Nuendo, which is my main DAW, and put together an analog mix. So in the last video, what I was talking about was how to create a drum bus. And it's funny because my first instincts were not what I ended up going with. What I ended up doing was the last thing I mentioned in that video, which was I ended up just using the 3 and 4 Aux Sends to create the drum bus. So basically, it works pretty well actually. By doing it that way, if you recall in the last video, I also discussed a system of letting the direct outs go to the interface and using the interface mixer to create a bus. But the problem with that is you're converting, you're going to digital. So by using the Aux Sends, we're staying analog. And it's pretty cool basically. You leave the sends in post fader, and then basically just turn all the sends, crank them all up to 10, and then it's reflected. The send levels are reflected by the faders, and then you can control, or I can control. Whoever's doing this can control the send levels through the aux masters. And in this case, the 3 and 4 has its own, one stereo master, which makes it even easier. So what I'm doing is I'm sending my drum channels that way to a pair of distressors. And actually, wait, no, I'm not. I'm using those for individual channels. That's for it's kick and snare. I'm sending them to the Fatso. And I love the Fatso. I don't love it if I wasn't doing parallel processing. If I was sending all the drums through this bus, and that was the only route I was taking, I would probably do something else. I would probably do the distressors actually. But since I'm doing parallel processing, then the Fatso becomes a lot more palatable for me. So basically, like my drum channels, I'm sending them directly to the master bus, and then I'm taking the output of the Fatso and bringing it up here, and just using it as a New York compression parallel, and it's great. It's working really well. Yeah, he's talking in the gig. So anyway, so that's working really well. And one thing I've noticed is I saw, when I was thinking about buying the console, I saw like almost every video I saw, people weren't using the 500 slots. They had them blank. And I was really perplexed about that at first. And then when I got the thing, I realized why, which is, it's a fault of the console, and I love this console, but this part's a little annoying. It's worth knowing before you buy it, which is there on the back of the board where all the TRS jacks are. There's a row on this side for 500 series input. But the problem with that is if you actually use those jacks, like I planned for it in advance, and I allotted space on my bay, and I got snakes, But if anything's plugged into those jacks, it defeats all other inputs. It defeats your mic and your line level inputs, you know. And of course, you know, I mean, now of course, you know, what I wish they had done, I really wish they had done this, is just put a bypass switch in, you know, or whatever, like, you know, a way to switch that input, you know. So, but they didn't. So the only option would be to actually go around to the back of the board and plug and unplug the cables, and I'm not doing that. I don't know anybody that's going to want to do that. So it was really a waste even putting the inputs in there, because who's going to use them? Nobody, you know. And because of that, it makes the flexibility of those 500 slots, you know, it makes them, you know, it kind of throws it out the window. I mean, that's why so many people aren't using them, because you can't just patch anything you want into that gear. You can't treat it as an independent 500 series rack, basically. It's only a part of the channel. So, you know, that's a bit of a drag. The reason why you still see, you know, 500 series gear in those slots on my board is I'm trying it. I'm going to see if I can make it work for me. What I did was I created a template in Nuendo where I have, here, if I can just pull it up. So I have outputs, I don't think you can see it, but where I've just named them API box 500, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. And so, you know, basically they come up as buses in Nuendo over there. And on any track, I can just, you know, I mean, I can just send it to that if I want to use those particular EQs. Like, so for instance, I mean, normally I would just do my drums in a row, but because I wanted to use 560s on electric guitars and Helios on keys, I switched it up. So all it meant is I had to move my toms over here. And, you know, my initial reaction is that's no big deal. We'll see how that lasts. We'll see if I find it annoying over time. But for now, I'm going to leave it. And, you know, the upside to having them in there is when recording, you know, it's less patching. So, you know, an input signal to the mic pre goes right to the 500 series, yada, yada. I have one client in particular who's just really, you know, he's just really over the top about cable lengths and things like that. So I know he really appreciates having, you know, a direct connection like that. One interesting thing that I did was in my bay, I normaled some of my inserts. So my inserts on 9, 10, 11, 12, that's if I'm using, this is 24 channels. So 9, 10, 11, 12, I have normaled to these 4 BAE equalizers, these Neve style equalizers. And then and then even those are normaled after that to the purples and the LA2s. And it's great, you know. Actually, even on this mix, it was funny. Like I brought up the fader for the bass here on 9, and I forgot that the insert was already in on that channel, and I was just like, "Wow, this bass sounds amazing!" I can't believe, you know, the recorded version of this bass is so great. But it was already going through the equalizer and the LA2, so boom, there you go. And then I did something. This is not relevant to the mixer, but this Fredenstein rack has the ability to link channels. So I was able to make channel strips out of these BAE pre's and EQs. And it's just a little switch in the back, which is actually pretty easy for me to access. So when tracking, I can do the same thing that's going on with the APIs, which is I can go mic pre EQ with no patching, which is nice. It's convenient. And you know, it's also like I can start with these normal to those EQs. I can start thinking of them in the same way I do here, which is like start strategically positioning tracks that I know I'm going to want to use that on these 4 channels. So you know, it's just a matter of getting comfortable and getting a setup that works. The next part of this, so I've got a master chain set up now where I'm using the Stereo 527 compressor on the master bus. It's possible to assign them to channels 1 through 4 as, you know, if you want to, but I really like the way they sound on the master bus, so I'm probably gonna always use them there. I mean, maybe with recording I would do it that way, but oops, sorry. But right now I'm using it on the master, and then I have the master insert in, so I'm also hitting Fern compressor and Chandler curve bender EQ, and that's a really nice master chain right there. You know, the 527 to the Fern to the Chandler. If you sound bad coming out of that, you really got a problem. But so then the interesting part is, and this is just working out my workflow for hybrid mixing, because I've been in the box for a long time now. So this is all, and then before that it was just analog. So I've never done both in this way before. So what I'm doing is my mix out, my program out, is then feeding a stereo pair of inputs, which is then going to a stereo track, and then I have the output of that stereo track feeding my 2-track input. So you know, if I switch to program, you know, I would hear it before it goes to the computer, but I can hear it after the computer with that 2-track input. And the advantage there is, and this was the whole reason I wanted to do this. I mean, aside from just hearing, you know, the actual file that's being printed, it's the chance to introduce a brick wall limiter, which, you know, doesn't really exist in the analog domain, at least not like this, not one that prevents intersample peaks. This is the relatively new BX True Peak from Plug-in Alliance. Man, this is a fantastic peak limiter. For as far as I'm concerned, it's the best one out right now. And I have most of the others, you know, Fab UAD, Fab Filter, Ozone, whatever, and this one's really incredible. But so yeah, so basically I can hit that. Nuendo is a little unique among DAWs in that you have dedicated input channels. So I don't have to create an aux bus or anything. I mean, I guess it's the same, you know, really when you boil down, but it's already just built in with Nuendo that there's an input channel. So I can hit it with that on the way in to the record channel. And then in this case, I'm mixing live tracks where we didn't get room mics. There were no mics at the board or anything. So I'm hitting the entire mix with an altiverb patch of it's a convolution reverb of the Paradiso Club, and you know, pretty with the mix cranked down. I don't know, what am I doing here? 16%, something like that. What? It sounds great though. It's really awesome. Honestly, I'm sure it sounds better than what room mics would have sounded like at the actual gig. So that's fun. And you know, I'm loving it. It's working great. And I've got, you know, every one of these summing inputs has inserts, so you know, I'm hitting, you know, all the other tracks, you know, the vocals, toms, back and all these things, with effects. Oh, I also, since the last video, I added a Lexicon PCM92 so that we could add reverb to the mix after the analog processing. And this is a really interesting box because it's got such flexibility. There's two distinct or discrete engines in it that can do entirely different effects if you want, and you can organize it any way you want. So like right now I have it in a stereo cascade mode, where so there's two stereo effects. There's a medium plate and I have a short plate before it. But one way that's really great to use this is you can have two mono inputs both feeding independent stereo effects. And you know, the only drawback is there's only, you know, they both of those effects come out the same output. But again, like what I can do is use Sends 1 and 2 to go to the two different machines on the Lexicon, and I can control the balance with the Aux Sends. So you know, if I'm hearing too much of one, I can just, you know, I can balance it that way, and then I just bring that up on faders. And the way to do that is just come back in through the insert return on that channel. And I had talked about this in the last video too. You can also do the program sum input, which will bring you in before the channel compressor on the master channel, but there's no volume control. So and they don't make, unfortunately, the PCM92 does not have. I mean, there are ways to control the output level, but they're buried in menus. There isn't a knob on the front panel for that. So it's easier, certainly for this box, to have it come up on faders. But you know, it's nice. It works out pretty well. I mean, you could have, in theory, like you could have a drum chamber or any kind of drum reverb on Aux Send 1, and you would get a stereo reverb from that, and then you could have something, you know, geared towards vocals on Aux 2, and again, you get a full stereo effect for that, whether it was a reverb or delay or whatever. So that's pretty convenient. And then in addition to that, I bus all of any effects I'm doing in the box, just part of summing. I just give it its own channels. So so that's all going pretty well. And then, you know, the only interesting part beyond that is, again, the idea of expanding and using another summing box. At this point, I'm running out of outputs. I have 32 channels on this Lynx. So I have 24, you know, the first 24 going directly to the line inputs on the API. Sorry about the focus thing. So I only have 8 more that are unassigned, and I need 2 of them for monitoring, of course. So that leaves me with 6 that I could send to that, which is, you know, whatever. It's still useful, but I'm already thinking about adding more I/O, doing an aggregate, you know, interface situation in the Mac. Possibly actually just another one of these Lynxes, but maybe with some digital I/O as well, because I don't have any on this one. And the Lexicon has AES in it, so that could be useful even for situations where I'm mixing in the box, so to speak. So all right, I guess that's about it. I hope any of this information has been helpful. Again, this is just me and the way I'm using it, but you know, it's been very effective. You know, this all is sort of kludgy and trying to sort of make a mixer out of something that's really sort of it's more than a summing mixer, less than a full-on mixer. And, you know, I'm trying to make it a mixer, basically. But you know what? It's working. You know, these mixes are sounding fantastic. It sounds like an API. It has that rich, you know, aggressive but you know, with depth sound, and you know, it sounds like an API. It's great. It sounds like a record is what it sounds like. It sounds great. You know, I'm getting what I wanted out of it, and that's the bottom line. And they're smart at API. Like, they put in just enough to get people like me to buy this, and not enough so that people like me will definitely eventually want to move up. Yeah, at some point. But I'm having fun with this now, and yeah, it sounds great, and as you can see, it is pretty flexible. Like, hey, at least I'm able to do all these things and make it work. So all right, that's it. Thanks, everyone. Take care.